heard me there earlier on the Suffolk Store Cupboard, or Cooking with Taylor, as my boy has renamed it, making a recipe from Food Savvy Suffolk. Eleanor Redgrave is Service Development Officer with Food Savvy Suffolk, and she joins me on the line now. Good afternoon, Eleanor.
Good afternoon, Georgie.
Now, tell us a little bit about what Food Savvy Suffolk is, because you're part of a wider network of food savvies, aren't you?
That's right, yeah. So just to give your listeners a bit of background, I don't know whether they're aware, but in Suffolk alone, we waste over 50,000 tonnes of food every year, which is obviously a shockingly big amount, and something that we really need to tackle. So through finding out that, we thought we need to do something. So a partnership between ourselves, Suffolk County Council, the Suffolk Waste Partnership, which is Suffolk County Council and the 5 district councils. And we joined forces with Norfolk County Council and an environmental charity called Hubbub, who specialise in doing lots of brilliant campaigns to kind of create Food Savvy, which is really to kind of help help residents in Suffolk reduce their food waste.
It's something that we've all been talking about for quite some time, and it became very prevalent at the beginning of the pandemic when certain foods and supplies were in very short supply, and that was one of the reasons I started doing the cooking here on the show, literally because the first few recipes were leftovers and things from the back of the cupboard that I'd had ages that were still in date and never ever got round to using. Are you hoping that people continue being resourceful with what they've got, even though food now is, there aren't shortages anymore?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think we've definitely noticed through lockdown that there has been a shift in people's behaviours around food. Hubbub, the charity that we're partnered with, they did some polling nationally, and they found that 57% of people were beginning to waste less food, which is obviously fantastic news from our perspective. So there's definitely been some new behaviours coming out of lockdown, people checking their cupboards more before they go shopping, people using up what's already in their cupboard. And I think, we really want to kind of encourage those behaviours to continue.
That amount of food waste that you told me about in Suffolk alone, just tell me that figure again.
So it's approximately 50,000 tonnes a year.
50,000 tonnes a year. What is that predominantly? Is it things that have gone out of date? Is it spoiled fruit and veg? What is it? It's
split into two things, which is obviously your unavoidable food waste, which is things like your vegetable peelings and things like that, because there'll always be a little bit of that kind of food waste, although we would encourage people, if they've got gardens and things, to take up home composting. But you've got a huge amount of that is what we call avoidable food waste, which is bits of leftovers on people's plates, but also a huge amount of it is unopened packaged food that hasn't even been touched, and that's the stuff that we really want to kind of encourage people to kind of stop wasting. That food really is really key.
Yeah, the odd scraping of a few peas and some potato peelings is one thing, but going through your cupboards, and I've done it, I'll hold my hand up, I've done it, and I've gone through my cupboards and I've found tins and packets, and they're well out of date, and I obviously bought them for some reason or some recipe that I never got round to doing.
When talking of dates, one of the things that we focus on is one of our key behaviours is really making sure people do understand the differences between those two dates, because that does cause people confusion. And obviously you've got your use by, which is about food safety, and it must be used, by the use by, or if you don't get round to using it, pop it in the freezer. We're huge advocates of the freezer. We love the freezer at Food Savvy Suffolk, and it's such a force for good in terms of reducing food waste. So, yeah.
Absolutely. But what about tins? What about the best before date? Because like you said, there's these two dates and people do get confused.
Yeah, they do. And obviously it's really important that we are clear on it. So best before is about food quality. So it might not be at its best anymore, but it's still safe to eat. And I think people really need to understand that a tin of baked beans will have a best before on it, but it might have reduced it might not taste as good as it originally would, but it will still be safe to eat. And I think that's really important that people don't muddle that best before and that used by.
So what would you say then if I had a tin of something, I don't know, like some beans or something like that, and the best before was January this year and we're now in July, what would you advise me to do?
Well, I mean, I don't. Obviously, the Food Standards Agency is the best place to go for some kind of food safety advice. But I think, and it's best before is still fine to eat after the date. I mean, obviously, I think it's really important that people use their initiative and obviously open the tin and do, check it, use your initiative. If it smells bad, it might be bad. And I think we need to also balance the dates with using a bit of common sense as well. But yeah, absolutely. Use by is about food safety and people shouldn't be eating it past the use by. But as long as, but that's where that freezer comes into use. And if you haven't got around to using that packet of chicken, pop it in the freezer, defrost it, cook it another day. I think that's really an important message that, to get across to people.
And maybe planning meals, thinking about what you're shopping for.
Planning is a big part of, reducing food waste. We found that people who do plan their meals more do generally waste less. And we've got on our website, our Food Savvy website, we've got a little meal planner that people can download and use if they want, or anything like that. And we also encourage people to check their cupboards before they go shopping. And we have a little phrase in Food Savvy called take a shelfie. So take a picture of your shelf or your fridge shelf. And then so when you're in the supermarket and you're getting your groceries, I mean, I do it. I go in and I think, have I got pasta? I can't remember. I'll just get a packet anyway. And then I get home and, normally I have got a packet. So it just, you can get the picture up on your phone and check what you've got before you purchase. That's really a little top tip that we like to pass on to people.
That's a great tip. Now, talking about your website, I went on your website this week and there's lots of recipes on there as well. That's one of the ones that I cooked this week. It was great, and my little boy really enjoyed it. We adapted it a little bit.
Brilliant, that's what we like to hear. Yeah,
I had chicken sausages in my that were going out of date that day, so they got used. I added some herbs and some Worcester sauce, and in the end, we ended up doing it in the slow cooker and putting some pasta in for the last half an hour, which kind of sucked up all the extra juice. And and then my boy was very happy to eat it. I also didn't have a big tin of baked beans. I only had a little one, so I put butter beans in.
Perfect. Sounds brilliant. That's really good.
So it's really good. Really nice. But those tins of beans are quite cheap to, or you can buy packets and do them. It was quite a good budget meal.
Good, excellent. That's really, really good. So we've got obviously that's one of a lot of recipes we've got on our website. We've got main meals, but we've also got puddings and salads and things like that. So we've got kind of something for everyone, I would say, on the website. And but for people just to use for inspiration. And like you say, you changed it, you adapted it, and that's what we would encourage anyone to do with any of those recipes. Use what you've got at home. So I think that's really important. Is people should be flexible with their cooking. Don't just follow it word for word. If you haven't got some sausages, but you've got something else that you could use that might be just as nice, swap things in and out. And I think people during lockdown definitely did a lot of that when going back to what you were saying, you couldn't get certain things in the supermarket. So people had to, use what they had. And on our Food Savvy website, we have got a whole list of what we call 10 hard to find ingredient swaps. So all of those things that people were finding they couldn't get hold of, things like eggs, what can you use instead? So I would really encourage people to have a look at that, because I learned a lot through it and found it really interesting. You can swap an egg for a banana if you're baking a cake, that kind of thing. So
we had to be very resourceful, didn't we? There was a huge run on flour there for a while. But luckily that seems to have sorted itself out. The website is www.foodsavvy.org.uk. Some great stuff on there, and especially as we head into the school summer holidays, cooking on a budget as well, which is very important this time of year if you've got a family.
It is, definitely. And I think the summer holidays also have the other challenge of people are out and about more and they haven't got their normal kind of, I mean, I know we've kind of been out of routine for a long time now with obviously lockdown, but routines go, don't they, in the summer holidays, families go out to the beach for the day and come back and things like that. And that's where I think having food in the freezer for those days where your plans have changed is really important. So doing a lot of batch cooking, if you're making a curry or a chili, make enough for a few meals, put some in the freezer. So then when you come back from the beach, and you thought, what we're going to have for tea, you've got something that you can kind of heat up. And I think that's a really good way of people kind of saving money and things like that.
Yeah, great tip. Eleanor Redgrave, Service Development Officer at Food Savvy Suffolk. Just remind us of the website again.
So it's www.foodsavvy.org.uk.
And Savvy's got 2 V's in it. So
yes, it has. Thank you, yes.
Just in case you got spelling like mine. And
yes. No, thanks for that. Yeah, Food Savvy with 2 V's. Yeah.
Eleanor Redgrave, thank you so much for joining us. This is